Smart Share Housing's Home Share Slow program has, since 2017, assisted hundreds of clients and thousands of community members in considering the home share process and whether it makes sense for them. To date, Home Share Slow clients have received direct cash benefits of roughly $2.5 million, along with companionship, security, and enhanced ability to age in place. Okay, so you have been thinking about home sharing and you have put out your ad and you're receiving inquiries, and now you want to know, how do I manage all these inquiries? How do I ask the right questions and get the right information out of people so that I can make a good choice in my potential housemate? So I've invited Anne to join us today, and she has a lot of experience with home sharing. So welcome, Anne.
Thanks, Vicki. It's good to be here. I've benefited directly from home sharing over a lot of decades, and at Smart Share Housing Solutions, a San Luis Obispo, California nonprofit, we've worked to help facilitate over 100 home share matches, working with hundreds of clients over the last 8 years.
I'd love for you to share with us some of the things that someone can do to make their home sharing experience as positive as possible. And it's not always intuitive.
It's important to think about this as a job, which has some requirements. And also to keep in mind that there are a lot of benefits, but you can do everything right and nothing is foolproof. So there are some risks involved. In our video on managing inquiries and applications, we talked a bit about how to approach interviewing potential housemates. But what we wanted to do is pick up right there now.
We will have links to all these resources in the description of this video, and we're going to talk about a few of those right now. In our first contact with a potential housemate is usually over email or messenger of some kind if you're advertising online. But past that, what would you recommend be the first point of contact beyond electronic communications?
We like to look at this as three sort of separate steps. First of all, a conversation by phone to get a few questions, and then following up with an in-person meeting in a public place. And then if there's interest in continuing the discussion, inviting the potential home sharer, or if you're the person looking for a room, going and seeing the home. And this could all
Okay.
happen in a day fairly quickly, or this could happen over a month if there is a lot going on. I really recommend speaking to a potential housemate directly by phone. It's important to slow it down and make sure it's a real person and not just someone totally pretending to be someone else. Some of the questions that may be asked on the first conversation, pretty boilerplate questions, that you want to find out. Why do you want a home share? What is your current housing situation? How long do you see yourself in a home share? And are you looking for something for a month, or are you looking something the rest of your life, or what's your situation? What's your daily schedule? Do you stay home during the day? Do you work? Are you looking for housing for just yourself or for a couple of people? Do you have pets? Do you have a car that'll need to be parked? If you don't want
Mm-hmm.
smoke in your house, if you don't want alcohol in your house. So those are good first interview questions.
Yeah, and I suppose if you have any personal deal breakers, for example, if you have health conditions and you expect that any potential housemate be vaccinated, you would ask those questions right up front to save everyone time.
If, for example, you don't have car parking and someone needs to park a car, that might be kind of a deal breaker right there. If you don't have internet or cable TV, those may be
Yeah,
things to just kind of get out there right up front.
I suppose that goes both ways. The seeker would also be asking questions, and we do have separate questions for home seekers asking about what things they would require from a home provider.
We're kind of bundling this together for people looking for housing, who we refer to as home seekers or seekers, and for people providing housing, the home providers. But the questions and angles on this would be a little different. And so we have our question sheets set up kind of from the two angles.
One phone conversation, of course, isn't enough to make a final decision. So, assuming the phone conversation goes well, what's the next step? You said meeting in a neutral location.
That's right. And there's no magic number on this or exact right way of doing it, but we do recommend in person meeting separate from the home. I like to think of it as building a connection or feeling like there's a level of comfort without having the potential housemate fall in love with something about the house that's exceptional, but that you don't click comfortably. If the space is a more private space,
Yeah.
maybe just a feeling of general trust is good enough, even if there isn't a lot of personal interest. If there's more shared space, then of course that easy comfortability will matter more.
And I think that one of the things that can help someone who's interviewing people like this is to have another set of eyes, a trusted friend or family member there with you while you're interviewing people to give you just a second opinion.
A slower process, is first of all kind of a way to stay safe and avoid scams. And bringing someone else along is a helpful tool.
Protecting yourself from scammers goes both ways. Both home seekers and home providers can be scammed out of their money or their belongings. And some of the common scams include getting home seekers to pay a first month's rent or deposit without actually seeing the place in person, because the person who's posting the listing doesn't actually own the home or was never intending to rent it out and is just going to disappear with your money. So do not give money to anyone until you've seen it with your own eyes. Providers can also be scammed if somebody were to gain access to their home with bad intentions. But you can protect yourself by taking your time and having additional people around.
You want to build in some security first and foremost.
So there's 3 interviews then, over the phone, in person at a neutral location, and at the home itself. And we do have a set of questions for each of those. And if after that there's still interest in moving forward with a home share, what else can people do to make sure that this home share is going to get started off right?
One thing that we required of enrolled clients in our Home Share Slow program was a trial match, where the home seeker actually stays overnight for a couple of nights in the provider's home as a temporary guest and tests the waters on sharing. So if pets are involved, it can be very helpful to see how they get along with other pets. If there are bright lights at night, or conversely, no lights at night, or loud, bothersome noises, these are things that won't be apparent on a short day visit. So it can be helpful to test them out. But I'm not sure an overnight trial match is practical outside of the guided process of a nonprofit program, though. So I'd suggest that if you're considering a home share, that nighttime lights and noises be discussed. And if there are pets involved, that at least both parties spend several hours with other people's pets.
Now that you think you've got the person that you are going to invite into your home to live, how do we make these kind of agreements? Like, we need something official. It just so happens that we have some wonderful worksheets and sample contracts that we will be sharing in the description. We have what we call our living together agreement, which is a little different maybe than a rental agreement.
And it's something like 12 pages, both the general terms that you would see in any lease, like rent, but also high level details on a variety of other items. Things like having emergency contact numbers. The other item that we spend a lot of time on right up front is an exit plan for the share. You really want to have a clear plan for how to handle time to move out, how the noticing will be, whether it will be in handwriting or through an email or a text, how many days notice are expected, a plan for the returning of the deposit and paying any last utilities.
Some of the things that were in there that I also wouldn't have thought of are visitors. Who's allowed to visit and when?
It is within your right to allow people to move in, but let them know that there will be some limits on visitors. Where you have
Yeah.
crossover space, your housemate's visitors could really affect you. And so it's easier to be very strict at the beginning and just say no visitors while you're getting to know your housemate. And maybe you could meet their friends and families outside of the home and become
Yeah.
comfortable with them over time. But if you are too allowing and permissive at the beginning, it's hard to close the door. So, we really recommend a sort of cautious approach at the beginning, and you can always get more flexible later. You want to have some sense of kind of how the condition of the space when you move in. So if there's any question about holding a security deposit for any damage, you want to note damaged imperfect areas at move-in, exactly how utilities will be calculated. You may be charging your housemate a set rate, or paying that if you're the home seeker, or you may be paying a portion of the actual utility cost that varies. Also, we recommend a process to renegotiate that if time goes on. And then
Yeah.
smoking is an important one. That's very important to be very clear on just exactly what types of smoke may be allowed and where, inside, outside, or a hard line, nothing. Some process for kind of check-ins and handling
Yeah.
disagreements. So you have to have some kind of understanding on types of communication. You'd think now that would be simple, but in fact, I think in so many ways that's gotten more difficult.
These agreements are not set in stone, and having a regular check-in gives you the opportunity to deal with it before it becomes a big issue. But it's important, I think, at these regular meetings when things do come up, and if you do decide to make changes, that you record them so that the agreement is always up to date.
As much as we want people to think of everything, there are always going to be more things that come up, right? And it's not if, but when. Home sharing is a bit like a job. And so it's
Mhm.
important to be thorough and consider a lot of potential situations together and then review them as time goes on. And if people don't want to spend time and take precautions to begin with, it's something to think about because you may not want to live with them. So that may be a hint. It may not be a good fit.
Yeah, these negotiations are critical to success, and people who are unwilling or unable to engage in the process might not make very good housemates.
In this process, we need to trust people, but we also need to verify that we have clear and honest information, written agreements between the parties, and a real interest to kind of follow up, refine those agreements. The Living Together Agreement is a shared housing contract specifying terms, and both parties should have their own signed copies, either virtual copies or paper copies. And we'll share links to the worksheet and a blank example agreement in the description. And there are spaces there to add other terms. And keep in
Mhm.
mind that fair housing and other laws change and vary state by state. Other terms may be necessary where you are.
So, is there anything else that we should know so that we can have a successful share?
There are
Yeah.
lots of other items. I do recommend people follow the link and look through the multiple items that are on the list.
People can watch all of our other videos. All of that will be useful for starting off right.
The National Shared Housing Resources Council is a national group for nonprofit home sharing agencies, such as ours at SmartShare Housing Solutions. And
Okay.
participating agencies help provide this step by step guidance for home sharing. So
So, if
you can
someone
go
isn't
there.
in San Luis Obispo and they need specific guidance, they could go there and find it for their area, maybe?
They can, and see if there's a nonprofit agency serving them. So if you're thinking of sharing and you may like a more organized kind of process and help, it's a good tool to go to the NSHRC website and look up if there's a nonprofit in your area. We're
Okay.
finding that there are a lot of new online tools now. So we've shifted to trying to help people use the multiple online tools for hosting their site rather than taking on specific clients as we did in the past. So we think these educational videos can help people utilize tools that are out there without having to do a lot of screening and process ourselves.
And I think it's important to note also that we don't endorse any specific online tool or organization. We're just here to evaluate all the kinds of sources and help people do the work that's involved effectively.
And that's the benefit of working with a nonprofit and using tools such as ours. I think that the value added that SmartShare Housing's Home Share Slow program and other nonprofits have, that we're not trying to push anyone into it for some gain, but trying to help people identify and meet their own needs, and recognizing home share as one tool that may help them with that.
All right. Well, thanks, Anne. We're hopeful that these series of videos where we have such a thorough process illustrated will help ensure that we have more successful home shares for both seekers and providers at last and that give people the housing that they need. So thank you so much for joining me, Anne.
Thanks for setting this up, and wishing everyone the best with their potential shares.
For more information, visit our website, smartsharehousingsolutions.org, or email us at info@smartsharehousingsolutions.org.